All right. All righty. Good morning and welcome, everybody. So today I want to talk to you about one of the fundamental books when it comes to being an entrepreneur. This is something that is recommended all over the world, over and over and over again. Just about any course you're going to take, anything that you're going to do, if you're starting down the journey as an entrepreneur, some of the biggest questions are, what are the best books to read? Where should I look? And what should I do? One of the fundamental books that you have to grab if you haven't yet is the book by a young man named Robert Kiyosaki. It's Cashflow Quadrant, Rich Dad's Cashflow Quadrant. It's a guide to financial freedom. Now, the first book in his series, Robert Kiyosaki kind of came to prominence in the late 90s and the early 2000s. And he wrote a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, talking about his journey in Hawaii. His dad was an administrator. I want to say he worked in the government or the education system, something along those lines, did well for an employee, but always came against some ceilings, right? He wasn't able to break through certain levels. And then as he started to grow and learn what he ended up calling his poor dad, his dad with this poor mentality, said, well, if you really want to learn about business or you want to learn about being an entrepreneur, you need to go talk to your friend's dad, your best friend, his dad. He's an entrepreneur. That's the guy you want to go chat with. And so he did. And he ended up learning a lot of things about this world of being an entrepreneur and how the system is set up and everything else. So if you haven't read it yet, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is an amazing book. But today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about Cashflow Quadrant. So either show of hands or give me a 1 inside the chat. How many of you guys have already read this book? Yes, no, good. Jeannie, Andrew, Jeff. Yeah, a few of you? Really? Just a couple of you? Wow. That's surprising. David, half. If you haven't read this, guys, this is fundamental. Now, not too long ago, I had a guy that came and went, well, I joined this thing years ago and they recommended that book and they were a scam. And if you're recommending it, you are too. And I went, well, and after having a conversation with the guy, it turns out that the company wasn't a scam. He just never did anything with it. Never went through the training, never utilized any of the things and went out and tried to market or do anything else. But he brought all that negativity with us. And I thought it was kind of interesting because, talking about this book, it's talking about these base quadrants, the way that we live our life, the way that we earn our money. And much of this is developed from a very young age. And we've talked about this over and over. But good, Francisco saying read it a while back. If you haven't read it in a long time, there's a couple of reasons that I recommend this book. And it's not just that a lot of you are making a transition from one method of employment, one method of generating income into another, but it helps you understand other people, helps you understand how they behave, why they're behaving a certain way, and how you can help them. Because now, as a business owner, if you're stepping into this the right way, your goal is to help other business owners create a system, leverage a system or software, et cetera, right? Social media, and help them create something that will allow them and their business to grow. So Cashflow Quadrant's a great book to begin with that. Let me kind of dive into what we've got here. I'm going to highlight a few things here. Okay. Now, Cashflow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki. Here's a couple of key elements. Everyone can be categorized according to how they get their money. So we have employee, self-employed, business owner, investor, right? Employee, self-employed, business owner, investor. And if you want to go ahead and just kind of create a little quadrant here on your page like this, employee, self-employed, business owner, investor. Now, be honest with yourself. Where would you find yourself currently? Where does most of your income come from? I'm going to give you, so employee means I work for my check. I do my work, I get my check. Self-employed means I work for my check, but I'm in charge. Business owner means I've got a business that runs, and even though I'm involved, a lot of it is self-sustaining. Investor simply means I've got money that works for me. That's all I do, whether it's crypto, in the market, real estate, whatever. So where is it you generate the majority of your funds? Drop it into the chat, guys, or let me know. Okay, so we got some S's, we got employee. B, we got some people that are running businesses. All right. So there's where we want to be, and then there's where we are, big S, small b, little I. There we go. We got all sorts of different things standing in here. So I'm in all four. There you go. And a lot of us are. So let's kind of dive into some of these, right? Now, first, Kiyosaki describes investing and getting to that point of financial freedom, right? Being in some areas where you're not simply trading dollars for time is what's going to be essential for the freedom, financial freedom that many people are looking for. And when I'm talking about financial freedom at this point, guys, just for a real quick frame of reference, it doesn't necessarily mean an abundance of wealth, although abundance of wealth is definitely possible. Simply here, financial freedom means I have money, investments, business, or systems that's generating income that don't require 100% of my attention, can run without me being 100% involved, and I'm generating enough that my bills are taken care of. Does that definition currently, are you guys all on board with me for that? Okay. We're not necessarily talking about going out and buying a fancy car. We're not necessarily talking about, flying around and doing everything like that. What we're talking about is simply having enough finances coming in through different methods that bills are taken care of without me having to be constantly there. Like if I miss a day or something happens, I'm still going to get some income coming in to take care of things. Make sense? Everybody still on board? We're all here? Yes? Okay. Hopefully. All right. Now, 5 things that happen to people who do not invest or invest poorly. You end up working hard your entire life. There is a concern or worry about money all their life. Okay. They depend on others to take care of them. So that's sitting back and going, well, I'm going to retire at 62, 63 because of Social Security or government pension or this or that, right? The boundaries of their lives are defined by money. I would do this, but I need more money here. What you can and can't do is not dictated by what you want to do, but what your money allows you to do. And then it's really hard to get to know what true freedom is, financial freedom is at that point. All right. A couple of quotes from Robert here inside the book. No matter what anyone is saying to you from outside, the most important conversation is the one you are having with yourself on the inside. Hence the affirmations group. Hence the conversation that we consistently have about your subconscious mind and the conversation you have inside your head. Next, remember that anything important can't really be learned in the classroom. It must be learned by taking action, making mistakes, and then correcting them. That's when wisdom sets in. All right. Now we get into our quadrants: employee, business, self-employed, investor. Here we go. A couple of key highlights. Now, I'm not going to give you guys these slides. You can find a ton of videos at this point. There are probably tens of thousands of videos explaining what this book is about. You can find hundreds and hundreds of articles if you look them up, but please grab the book for yourselves. Guys, you can get the book for $10 right now. If you don't want to spend the money on it, then it's kind of indicative of where you're probably at in the quadrants, but you can get it from the library. You can probably find the PDF. Just find it. The employee wants financial security. Seek safety of a long-term contractual agreement. Look for financial success through climbing the corporate ladder. Someone else's system to earn money. Work hard, be careful with their money. Children are taught not to take financial risk. Credit is a liability and dangerous. Children not taught about starting their own business or investing. These are kind of the parameters of someone that fits into that. This is the way they think. This is what they look at and how they look at life. Now, this is what many are led to believe. How has the last few years kind of modified some of these things? What has changed for people with some of this? Financial security, long-term contractual agreement, an opportunity to climb the corporate ladder. How much does that apply now versus even, the year 2000 when this book came out? How much has changed in the last 20 years? I got a bunch of comments in there. I should more free time now with COVID. Economy shocks. Open my eyes about the book. Where does retirement income fall into it? Okay. Michael, you disagree with the 5. Okay.
Yes.
What do you disagree about?
Well,
We're talking here.
if you want to have true freedom, I mean, it depends a little bit on the person. Okay, so I mean, I agree where you're coming from.
So he's talking about here financial freedom according to kind of the definition that I gave is what we're talking about. I understand there's different. Freedom and success is a very personal definition. What I'm talking about here, the definition that we're using for the sake of this conversation is really money and other systems that I have in place are generating the income I need so I do not have to concern myself with bills. Okay. That's what we're talking about.
Thank you.
Does that fall in with what you're saying? You still disagree about the 5?
Well, what do you think? I realize we're talking about financial freedom, okay?
Yeah.
In different very ways, fit to people's personalities.
Yeah.
Which is really good. But I'm concerned that people get focused only on that one thing, which doesn't buy them freedom because they're stuck on one thing. I'm not saying it's going to happen with this group because they're really pretty ongoing.
Right.
But I just want to be a little more, this is important. Financial freedom is important.
Yeah. Oh,
it's not the only thing in life. It's the only thing I'm saying.
And I want to, I agree. And I know you've been on enough of these that you understand. I feel that same way, right? It's not just about the money, it's impact over income as part of what you try and do as you grow up. So, but what we're talking about here at the same time, being in a position where money's taking care of my basic concerns, because if we look at, throughout society, at least currently in the world that we're in, if we could solve a number of our own personal financial issues where I don't have to wake up in the morning and worry about where the next bill is or worry if something happens to friends or like I've got, a couple of my kids have some special needs and medical needs and other things like that. There's issues there where I didn't have the businesses that I have generating income. I would wake up with that extra weight on my shoulders of how am I going to make sure that they're taken care of? And so what he's talking about here with the financial freedom, and again, we're not talking about some craziness that's out there, whether you want to feel it's crazy or just whatever level of financial success we're talking about at higher levels is kind of aside here. What this is really just focusing in on is the financial wherewithal with funds that you have anywhere in the world invested, be it stock market, crypto, real estate, or something that you've done where there's a inflow of cash, where that cash comes in and it's not directly related to the time and effort that I have to continuously put into it, if that makes sense. So it's just kind of looking at all of it. Earn says, I invest just waiting for GMC and AMC to squeeze and crypto's dropping. Crypto's been an interesting week. There's been somewhere in the neighborhood of a little over $1 trillion lost in the crypto market overall. And yeah, it can be crazy. But here's the thing as well about where the investors are. Well, I'll talk about some of their mindsets. Yeah, let me dive in. All right, so we pull back on track. AO, yeah, blockchain, not blockchain. Let me see. Where does retirement income? So, Lynn, retirement income at this point can be used as an investment if you're also putting it to work, right? Because it's kind of this weird balance of you got it from being an employee in some way, right? You traded your time for dollars, and then it's giving back in that regard. So, anyway, let's see. Decentral back to work for me. Everyone have a great day. Sam, good luck. Financial freedom. Yep. Lack of financial stress. Middle class being crushed. Okay. So moving back into it. Agree with your points, Michael. And some of those things I actually want to talk about later this week. Okay. Next, self-employed. And I agree with what you guys were saying. So financial security, long-term contractual agreement, they just don't exist anymore, guys. The amount of people that I talk to that, get into 25 or 30 years worth of employment are now at a stage where they're going to have this pension that's going to last and going to be enough to allow them to live the way that they expected are few and far between. On the other hand, the amount of people that have had 4, 5, 10 jobs in the last 15, 20 years, that number continues to rise. That is much more the norm, which means there is no long-term contractual agreement. If you're in a company where if you were to get sick or something were to happen where your life was no longer, you couldn't work anymore, there's a very good chance you'd be replaced in a week, maybe two. Somebody else would step in, right? There is no longer that contract between employer and employee. So self-employed, and this is honestly, guys, for you, as you get into your marketing, this quadrant is what I believe is the most important to understand. Not in necessarily your journey, although many of you find yourself kind of balanced in between the E, S, and the B quadrants, but understanding this as you get into your marketing, many of your target audience will fit into this category, the small business owner or self-employed individual. Now, these are people that strive for control. They're the do-it-yourselfers. I want to do everything. No one can do it as well as I can. I want to be my own boss. They respond to fear by taking control, not by seeking security. So fear, uncertainty, employee says, I need a job. Self-employed, fear, uncertainty, you know what? I'm going to do this on my own. I'm going to, by the sweat of my own brow, power's in my hands, right? Financial success as a self-employed or small business owner is typically reliant on you becoming highly specialized in a demanding field. You can get by not being as specialized, being okay, being average, sometimes even being less than average. But actual success, you need to become highly specialized. They'll say, I'm looking for a job where I can be compensated well for my skills and time, but I want to be in charge. So being self-employed or owning a small business typically means you own a job. I've owned several jobs like that. My dad was a locksmith. He owned that job. When I started my cleaning company, I owned that job, right? That's where a lot of it started. They are typically hardcore perfectionists. It's got to be done this way. They struggle hiring employees because no employee is going to do it as well as they can. They're constantly on job sites or acting in projects and going, if you would just pay a little bit more attention, you could see that I do it like this, blah, 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 right? They don't typically allow as much autonomy for their employees. They're disappointed that their employees aren't simply happy being employed. I can't get reliable help. It isn't about the money for this group. They want the money, but a lot of it boils down to the independence. Yeah, I may not be making as much as I'd like to, but at least it's mine. And income is directly dependent on how much work they can do. Okay, let's see. Yeah, Jeannie, I'm sorry. That sucks. That's kind of, unfortunately, that's part of what's going on. So, all right. Questions on the self-employed small business, especially as you guys are looking at marketing. Instead of me just saying, does that make sense? What do you guys have thinking about the self-employed small business owner? Why are so many businesses that you're going to market to? Why do they fit in that category? We got 40 people on here.
What I found, Andrew, is when you're talking to people, often I come across people that are looking for real serious help, but they get stuck in this mindset that you talked about before, that they figure they got into business to do everything by themselves, and they get into this ego mindset that nobody else can do anything better than they can, and they won't let go. They're control freaks. You just
yeah, and they want to do it all on their own. And so if I'm out marketing, oftentimes I'm targeting doctors, contractors, therapists, real estate agents. Think about any of the businesses most of you guys have selected. Many of them are going to fall into this category of do-it-yourselfers, right? They're going to step into, they don't get past being a practitioner. Yeah. They never get actual systems in place. They rarely do. And so you have a chance, if they learn how to do this the right way, they have a chance to set up a system that can start to generate them leads and hopefully customers without having to be as hands-on. That's one of the biggest difference between the self-employed small business category and the bigger business, right? Being a business owner are the systems that you put in place and the leverage that they use. So,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, not only that, but the micromanagement isn't as high when you're an actual business owner versus self-employed. Self-employed, you have a lot of micromanaging. You still have, because they're the owner of that account still calls all the shots.
The pain levers for these people is a great question.
I was going to say in the extreme, I actually came across, I have a client
Guys,
who,
I think I put in, I put it, hey, real quick, I put in the wrong link for the affirmations group. Let me get you guys the right one. Sorry. Apologies. I put the wrong one in. I just got a message. Okay. This is the one to use. So the pain points for these people, the time is a huge pain. The frustration of not understanding, because it's not, remember, the financial success for them is becoming successful within that category, right? They become highly specialized. And so they haven't spent time to become specialized elsewhere. That makes sense? So they haven't learned the marketing side because they're a great mechanic. They haven't learned social media because they're awesome locksmith. They're great at construction, but trying to post on social media and create followers doesn't make as much sense. And so you're giving them an opportunity here with a system. Wouldn't you like a system where you could just turn it on and generate leads for yourself? Wouldn't it be great if you could focus on, your nutritional plans for your clients and not have to worry about where those clients are coming from? Wouldn't you love to be able to help people break through as a therapist instead of trying to break your head against the wall when it comes to social media? It's that kind of thing, right? Many of them are good at what they do. They're not good over here. And yet they oftentimes are unwilling to admit it. And so you're either giving them a system or giving them a simple way to learn and apply. And depending on who you're going after, maybe it's for the office manager or something along those lines. But the self-employed small business owner is very much, they are a do-it-yourself, or they want to find a way to figure it out on their own. That's why the ebook and the masterclass and all of that, that's why it just resonates with them so much, because you're handing that to them. Okay. So Carolyn, trying to be all things without outsourcing, depending on others who are good at the things they're not good at. Yeah. So with that, it really is one of the biggest difference between the self-employed and the business owner. So if you're thinking any of this describes you, like you're trying to be almost too hands-on and it takes you too long to get things done because you're trying to do too much on your own, as opposed to trying to leverage and rely on others and outsource, that may be something to think of. Why am I stuck here? All right. Get you the right Skype group there. All right. Now we get into the big business here. They're striving for freedom. Business owners are striving for freedom. It's easier to gain a financial success because you're creating a business system. You're using leverage at all times. You say things, instead of saying, I'm looking for a job where I can be compensated well. They're saying, I'm looking for people that are smarter than me to run my business for me. I'm willing to make those decisions, but I want people to run them. So leverage allows for time freedom. Expert leverage can result in financial freedom. Risk involved in system and who they utilize, because there's absolutely a risk there. There's risk in any of these. And I want to be real clear. Sometimes people say, well, I don't want to run that business, or I don't want to even have a small business. I'd rather not invest because there's risk involved. If you went through the last 18 months and you don't think being an employee has risk involved, then I don't know what to tell you. Then we're out of luck, because you're not paying attention to the real world. Everywhere we go, everything we do has risk. Whether that's the security of your job, it's the business that you're running, it's whether or not your customers are going to be around, any of this, there's risk involved with it. So, high focus on education directly related to business, markets, personnel, etc. So they look for the education, the mentors. There's more study done. People typically in the S and B quadrants work more hours than others, and yet they're spending more time on education. Credit is a tool instead of a liability, and the tax benefits are extensive. I just ran out of room here. There are tax benefits to even a self-employed or small business, but there's more tax benefits. There just are when you get into bigger business. Okay, so three key ways to transition from the S to the B quadrant. Ownership or control of a system. You have to have a system if you want to transition. You got to learn the ability to lead people, and you have to be able to use big picture thinking in action. S quadrant, awesome at the details, awesome at, I got to know how to do every single thing, right? The B quadrant is looking big picture. Who can I get in the right place to make this work for me? For transition S to transition to B, they have to change themselves and their knowledge into a system. The issue is most people struggle to do that. All right. And then a little bit about an investor. The investor also strives for freedom. They gain financial success from allocating money where the money has the highest expected return. Make money with money. I'm looking for a place where my money can work for me in the most profitable way. Now, I'm not spending as much time talking about the investor right now. I'd like to spend on another day a little more time talking about the big business so you can understand what's needed to make the transition here, because a lot of us are stuck on this left side of the quadrant trying to get to the right side. That ability to have the financial freedom that we're discussing, at least on this call, the ability to wake up, money's working for you, and relieve at least that stress is going to become much more from the right-hand side than the left. Many of your target audience, the businesses that you're going to be helping, whether you are a coach or you're simply putting out the partner program or you've got other things to offer to them, most of them are going to find themselves in the S quadrant. Guys, understanding all of this is important, not just so you can run your business better. It's important because it helps you understand human behavior. The more that you understand that, as you build up and become more cognizant of who and where your mindset is when it comes to finance, success, and more, and then applying those principles so you can grow, it'll help you take that next step. And Cashflow Quadrant is an amazing book that you all should grab and start to read. At a minimum, hop on, read some articles about it, read some highlights, and get deeper into it and become better in your journey to become the best entrepreneurs possible. On that note,